Hi friends, Mindy here. Today we are going to be creating this waterfall card. Over on my Instagram channel, I had asked about a challenge, and this kind of was spurred from last month. I had somebody reach out to me and ask if I could create a book using fabric to bind it, but without stitching. And so if you've followed me on Instagram, you might have seen that book. I have a YouTube video. I'll link that below too, just showing how I did that. But it made me think that it might be fun to sort of issue this challenge to myself. And so what I did is I put a kind of a thing on Instagram and asked for everybody's input. And so Megan was one of the first people that responded. She's blessed beyond belief on Instagram, and she asked for a card that was a waterfall card. So that's what we're going to be making today. And if you have any ideas for this challenge, we're going to be calling it the hashtag Can Mindy Make It challenge. Go ahead and put your ideas either here on this YouTube video, or you can send me a message on Instagram for future videos and challenges that I can do. And then if you end up creating something using that hashtag, please use the hashtag and tag me in it. And so that way I can see what you have created. But for today, we're going to be creating this waterfall card. So we'll get into it. Okay, so the most important part of this is really understanding how the mechanism works, because once you understand that, you can really make this however you want. So I've created kind of a mock-up here. I do this whenever I'm unsure about how to do things. And you can see I'm just using some old scrap paper, but I have, just kind of making sure all of the pieces work and things I need to watch out for and whatever. So, the thing with this is you can really have as many little flippy parts as you want to. I just went with 3 because I would be creating in a card, and so there just wasn't a whole lot of room. But you could do a ton of these. You could, if you had like an 8.5 by 11 paper, if you were doing it in a scrapbook, it would be a really good way for you to create a lot of, room for pictures or whatever. So you can really use this. You can adapt it for Bible journaling. You can adapt it for all kinds of things. So the first thing that you need is a paper, like a long skinny paper, and you kind of need to decide what size your squares are going to be. So in this instance, I cut mine to 3 by 3, and then the paper behind it is also 3 inches. When I actually get into video the actual process, I actually made that just a little bit smaller, like 2 3/4, just so that they would kind of overhang, but you could do it either way. So, and then you need a long skinny piece to wrap around to kind of hold the mechanism secure, and you end up kind of gluing it. So you'll have this part that you pull, and hopefully that makes sense. So it's just a few pieces of paper. It's really just understanding how they all kind of go together. So you can see on this one, I spaced them apart about 1/4 of an inch, versus on this other one, they were about 1/2 inch. So how much space you leave is really up to you. I ended up actually liking the 1/4 of an inch better, and it gives you more room. You can do more little flippy parts that way. So it's really just according to the look that you're after. So you can see those score lines there on the back, and that's what we will be creating. So again, understanding the mechanism is really the most important part of how to do all of this. Okay, so for my card today, I'm actually going to be using the Wild Asparagus line from my Mind's Eye to create my card. And so I have pulled out one of the pattern papers, and I'm just scoring it here in half. It's about 8 inches long. So my card is going to end up being about 4 by 6, because my paper is 6 by 8, if that makes sense. So I just folded that in half, and then this is going to be my card base. You could really do this with any card base. And then I have pulled out 12 by 12 paper that kind of coordinates with the inside of this card base. And first thing that I'm going to do is cut the strip of paper that my little squares are going to stick to. And so I'm cutting this, I'm leaving it at 12 inches long for right now, and then I'm cutting it at about 2 3/4. And then I'm making my little squares, and again, I'm making them 3 by 3, but again, you could do this with any size. They don't have to be squares. They can be 4 by 6. They can be however you want to. It's really the mechanism that's the most important part. And then I'm just cutting a long strip that's about 1.5 inches, and then I will use that's going to be the piece that actually kind of adheres the whole thing down. So again, it's really more important to understand how the mechanism works than the size, because you can really adjust this to whatever you want to do. So I have pulled out some journaling cards that came with this kit. They are 3x4, and I'm just going to be trimming them down to fit inside my squares with a border. So they're going to be about 2 inches, 2 3/4 inches square. So I'm just going to be trimming each one of them down, and then that will leave a border. You certainly don't have to do this way. You could just decorate right onto the squares, or use white or whatever. So, you could stamp. There's a million ways that you could do this. I'm just trying to take advantage of this, this card set and all of the pieces that I have that go with this kit. So, you'll see how they're just going to kind of rest in there. So I have all of my bases and my little, embellishment pieces, and now I'm going to work on the mechanism. So we have this long piece, it's 12 inches long, and my squares are 3 inches. So what I'm going to do is get out my my scoreboard, and you could do this with a myriad of different ways if you don't have a scoreboard, but I'm going to go from the right hand side and measure at 3 inches, and then I'm going to score 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to actually make 4 score lines so that I have 3 valleys to glue my 3 squares to. So however many pieces you have in your waterfall determines how many folds you need to make. And so now I'm just going through and I'm kind of rolling each one of these sections back, and I'm scoring, burnishing it down with my bone folder really well, just to make sure that it slides easy. I'm using a pretty thick cardstock here, so just want to make sure that it's going to slide pretty easy. So I have this piece here, and now I'm going to glue on just the squares, and I'll decorate these after the fact. It's just doing the mechanism. So you can see this first section in the, not on the 3-inch square, but where the actual folds are. In that first section is where I'm going to glue this very first piece, and this is actually the piece that's going to be on the bottom. So if you're putting things in order, if you have a specific order that you want to do things, remember that you're working from the bottom up. So I just used some liquid adhesive that will give me time to kind of make sure I'm getting this exactly where I want it to be, and then making sure that I'm only gluing in the kind of valley section, and then you don't want the glue to go over the fold, and then also you want to make sure that your piece goes kind of right up next to that score line, but not over it. And so, and then with using the adhesive, the liquid adhesive, gives you time to kind of rearrange everything and make sure that your waterfall is nice and neat. Because you can kind of slide the pieces around and make sure that at least, like down the sides, that they're all nice and even. And so I'm using Barely Arts glue. It dries pretty quickly, and it seems to be pretty strong. So what I did there is I just flipped around the leftover part to the back side. So the part that was on the left just gets folded back. And you could do this waterfall actually, like if you wanted it, I'm doing it vertically, but you could definitely do it horizontally as well. It just, however you want to orient it is really up to you. But since I'm doing this birthday card like this, I'm doing it vertically. So I have that long piece, which I will cut down later, but I just kind of wanted to make sure I had the mechanism working. So I'm just making sure everything is glued down. I got a little impatient there with my liquid glue. I get that way sometimes. So now I'm going to create the piece that kind of helps this whole thing slide and stay together. So you can see after that third card that I glued down, kind of between the third card and the base is where I'm going to be putting this band that we created. And again, it needs to wrap around to the back side. And so I created mine pretty wide just so that I felt like it would give it more stability when it was sliding. And also because this is the piece that literally gets glued to your card base. And so the more surface area it has, the better. So what you do is you put adhesive there on the middle section, not on the flaps here. And then you glue it down to that 3-inch section, and then I flip it around, and now I'm adding adhesive only on the actual band part. I'm gluing the band to itself here. So you can see it's after it goes behind the third square, kind of in between the third square and the very bottom section, and then it wraps around to the back. And now I put some adhesive. I was getting a little impatient, so I went ahead and just used my ATG back there to kind of get to hold everything together while that Barely Arts glue dries, just so I could move on. So I have everything adhered, and what you'll see is I'm gonna trim this down. Now, how long you make this is really up to you. I decided I was gonna try to go ahead and just make a little tab just with my scissors, and in the end I end up really not liking how this looks, but I will go ahead and fix that in a little bit. Okay, so I have my little pull tab section there, and you can see I'm holding the side piece and it just slides up and down. So this band that we created is what's going to get glued down. So I'm just making sure, I'm using my really strong adhesive here, and I'm just making sure to only put it on that little band. You can see, because the rest is what it slides through that band. So I'm just putting this where I want it on my card here, and then I'm going to go through and add my decoration. So I'm just going to use my ATG and put my little ephemera, my little squares inside here. You could definitely decorate the back side of these if you wanted to. If you were using this for memory keeping especially, or in Bible journaling, it would really give you a lot more space to write or to include things. In fact, I may do a little waterfall thing in my Bible now that I have done this, because I really feel like you could get a lot of journaling in that way. But if you're doing memory keeping, it would be a good way to do your, have more pictures or more journaling about your trip or whatever. So it would give you a lot of room doing it that way. And so now I'm just going to decorate the front of this card, and I'm still using the pieces from this wild asparagus line. I'm just going to look here through the stickers. I'm going to add this really big floral kind of in the bottom right hand corner. It's a really beautiful set. I really actually like this paper line. So I'm just adding this up here, and then I had some other pieces that I had pulled out earlier. I wasn't sure what I was going to end up doing. And so I found this happy, and I just thought it looked really cute up there. And so I'm going to add this up here, and then I will make a little sentiment that says birthday using my Dymo embossing label maker. And then I will just put that up at the top. In the end, off camera, I actually added another little floral sticker behind that section that says birthday. You can see that in the close-up pictures at the end. And I also rounded the corners, but I didn't do that on film. So, but you can see that in the close-ups at the end. So at this point, I thought I was finished, and then I opened it up, and I just was not happy with that pull tab part, so I decided to fix that. So I found this tab that was actually in the ephemera pieces, and so I'm just going to glue this down, like just over that section. So I just used my Barely Arts glue there, and I'm just gluing it down around the little tab that I had created there. So you could write on there, if you wanted to, that says pull or whatever. I'm not going to. Hopefully it will be obvious. But anyway, so that is my card for today. And if you had fun and liked this video, I'd appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. If you have suggestions for more of the Can Mindy Make It challenges, I would appreciate it if you left them in the comments below, and I'll see what I can do. And until next time, bye-bye.